Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 17, Episode 2. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday. Steelers Nation Dave training camp in full swing. So really our first show of the regular podcast with training camp practices behind us. Day 3 happening probably as the time some of you are listening to this in early practice, 10:30 a.m. on Friday. Dave and I are recording this on Thursday evening, a little after 8 o'clock, just because I'm at camp on Friday morning. So if any big breaking news happens from now until then, that's the reason why we did not cover it. But all that aside, Dave, how you doing? How's been your start to training camp in the Mike McCarthy era?
I tell you, I'm really enjoying it, Alex. Like I know you don't like these different start times and maybe getting out there early. And I think you even said you got a little pink today or on Thursday with the sun and all like that and all. But man, I love that practice is over. I think about around, 10 or 11 my time out here in Vegas, and we're getting these special editions of the podcast knocked out by about 3 o'clock my time, I think, and getting them all posted. And I'm loving it. It makes the morning kind of flow a little bit easier instead of, you remember, usually you're waiting for you have the way it used to be is you had that first stage of morning interviews come in from, I guess, outside the cafeteria and all. Obviously those are really essentially replaced by Mike McCarthy speaking in the morning. And that's a little bit different. But, once again, Mike Tomlin, after practices, he maybe spoke at most. The press conference would be 3.5 minutes if you're lucky. And Mike McCarthy speaking, a lot longer than that in the morning time. And he's given a lot meatier, detailed kind of questions to kind of chew on top of it. So I'll take that trade off there. I'll take the practices being earlier, ending earlier, and it sounds like the tempo is up. A lot of newness that we're learning along the way here as far as you laying out the way practice goes. No 7 shots and obviously no tackling. So far, knock on wood. No injuries that we know of, and other than the PUP guys, someone's going to blister me for even mentioning that. But you look around the league right now, and especially at the start of camp, and all the teams put players on PUP, and a few of them on injured reserve already. I think this team's sitting in a good space where that goes there. But that's a long answer I love it.
Yeah, I like the morning practices. I don't mind that part. It's just the different times. I have to now keep in my head which time is which day and get all those stars aligned. But if you guys want a deep recap of training camp, all the play-by-play, basically, you can read the articles online, my training camp diary. You can also listen to the podcast. The Thursday one went up Thursday evening, of course. And so we're not going to talk about camp too much here, but just sort of top headline summary of the first 2 days of training camp. No pads yet. That won't happen until Monday. Only 2 days into a very long evaluation process. So not here to make any big proclamations about Will Howard versus Drew Aller or Maxie Honich or Dylan Cork or whatever battle you want to talk about. But I think the big takeaway is you see these practices be much more tempo, much faster pace, much more, in many ways, I think, efficient in terms of the way they were able to maximize the amount of time, the dual 11 on 11 team periods, one happening on one field, another happening simultaneously on the other. And certainly the offensive slant Mike McCarthy brings, where that's his bread and butter. And that's been the focus of much of his conversation with reporters.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. There's a lot of early camp practice on the 2-minute hurry up type offense there, and Mike McCarthy talked about the importance of it. How games are what did you say? Something like usually 8 games per team, come down to maybe the final possession or something along those lines. I forget the exact quote that he had. And, he's obviously getting this offense ready and defense for that matter, because defense gets to participate in it as well. He's really focusing on the hurry up 2-minute type stuff. So I think that's obviously a little bit different there. And I thought he talked, and we'll start getting into, I guess, a little bit about what he said Thursday morning there is, he wants them to be masters of their offense. And my takeaway, especially with hearing a few players kind of have that quote thrown back at him more. I think Mason Rudolph, so many words, said, he's been part of offenses in the past, has tried to do too much, and that hasn't gone overly well. It sounds like, master of their offense being, concentrate on maybe a little bit smaller core, but master that kind of stuff as well too. Don't try to be, as Mike McCarthy said, a jack of all trades there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that translate. Aaron Rodgers obviously has been with Mike McCarthy before. Those two aren't new working together. It is interesting with this camp when you got two young quarterbacks, and especially one in Will Howard that did not play any last year. And even if Will Howard had played last year during the preseason, let's say 100 snaps or something like that, he's got to learn new offense now. So you got both these young quarterbacks really going through this thing nearly at the same levels, right? Especially when it comes to experience. None of them have any NFL experience yet, and those guys are going to have to learn on the fly. And you got two veterans in the room, one that's worked with McCarthy before in Aaron Rodgers, and a guy in Mason Rudolph who's played in, obviously several different offenses, and it should be expected to pick it up pretty quick and help translate that to the rest of the team. So, yeah, I think it's intriguing. It's not the same old, obviously, of the past, and the changes through training camp have obviously been noticeable so far. I imagine that will continue, and hopefully the changes on the field are noticeable in a positive way as well.
To expand on that, Will Howard is on his fourth different offense in 4 years, right? His last year at Kansas State, his 1 year at Ohio State, last year with Arthur Smith, and now this year with Mike McCarthy. So he's used to running different offenses. I'm not sure if that's the greater good for his development or not. You could sit there and say he's used to a new offense and picking it up on the fly like he did at Ohio State, but obviously 4 different schemes and verbiages and all that in 4 years is heavy for a quarterback. So we'll see what impact that has as the summer rolls on. And you're right, even though you certainly hope Pittsburgh wins games a little more comfortably under Mike McCarthy. I mean, how many games, every Steelers-Ravens game come down to the last 2 minutes. I mean, the last year, week 18, Pittsburgh has a 2-minute drive to score, go ahead and take the lead, and then they have to defend it the other way. And obviously a missed kick there by Tyler Loop saved the season, but that's literally how the season ended, regular season at least, on a 2-minute drill both ways. So yeah, that's the nature of Pittsburgh, and I think McCarthy certainly is smart to emphasize that because it's a big part of situational football.
I mean, you look at this team just historically over the last, I don't know, 5, so let's say it until, since Ben Roethlisberger, this team doesn't get blown out a lot, right? And this team obviously doesn't win doesn't win big either. So, and you go back through several of these games, the Justin Fields stretch there, obviously, sort of a Russell Wilson stretch within there. How many of those games? Well, one of them, I think, against the Cowboys, although I think didn't the defense give that one up late? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, last trying to remember. Play, basically.
But then again, we just talked about how the defense can benefit from this as well too. So, do you have off the top of your head, or did Mike McCarthy rattle that off as how many close games over the last, I don't know, three seasons, say, that came down to essentially the last possession, maybe on either side of football?
His reference or his gauge was the number you said, 8 of 17. Then he said with Pittsburgh, we're getting their best, so you might get 10 or 11 of 17. Okay. So I don't have the exact figures, but I've always had the stat Mike Tomlin played in more one-score games during his tenure than any other team during that span, and Mike Tomlin had a better winning percentage in those games than any other team in that span. And again, you want Pittsburgh's offense to be more prolific and to score and win by double digits, but look at the back half of the schedule. Even though I hate doing the schedule guessing because you never know what's going to happen, but at Cincinnati, at Philadelphia, Denver, Houston, Jacksonville, Baltimore, Carolina, Tennessee, at Baltimore to end the season. Not a lot of games you can sit there and say, oh, they're really going to win by 14 points against this opponent. The
Right.
NFL at large, about 55% of games are one possession. So odds are if you're going to beat a Denver, beat a Houston, Baltimore, Jacksonville, it's going to be tight at the very end. And 2-minute drills that you're working on in training camp will certainly be applicable to those moments.
And let's face it, I think a realistic approach to or outlook when it, how many of this, how many people listening really expect this to be a prolific offense? And we're talking about this team
Mhm.
scoring 28 to 35 points a game, on a regular basis. I mean, yeah, you want to see it, but I think more than anything, you just want to see them be more efficient and finish drives and not turn the football over, and at least put themselves in situations where Aaron Rodgers maybe has the ball down 3 points or at most a touchdown with 4 minutes left in the game. And hopefully this stuff that they're doing in training camp will Michael Pittman said, basically they're going to be in a lot better condition too from having done this early in camp too. So it's an interesting aspect, and I think it's you can tell it's heavy on the mind of Mike McCarthy to concentrate on this stuff this early in training camp, especially when he's got a veteran quarterback to work with, or one that he's worked with before in Aaron Rodgers.
From a player standpoint, 2 days in, I think the standout has been cornerback Asante Samuel Jr., assuming first-team left cornerback reps with Joey Porter Jr. on PUP with back/bank account issues, and Samuel's been great. He's had multiple breakups on the football, end zone, go ball breakup on DK Metcalf day 1, 7-on-7 on day 2 on a little kind of wheel or fade to Pat Freiermuth broke it up. I mean, he's been all over the place, so we talked about maybe this could be a really good year for Samuel because he's fully healthy, got to really focus on football and playing the position this offseason as opposed to last offseason when he had his spinal fusion surgery and was recovering and rehabbing and focused on just his health as opposed to football and getting signed in November. No training camp, no offseason. This year has the whole program to work through, and it's certainly shining through these first 2 days of practice, Dave.
Boy, how great would that be if that continues? And obviously, man, to have your top backup like that, be a guy that's obviously got high pedigree, high draft pick, and has played a lot of games in the NFL and has had some pretty decent. Boy, if you get that guy back to the point where some of his better seasons early on in his career, there's bound to be instances. I mean, we've already talked about Jamel Dean. He's got a little bit of a history of missing some games. Odds are probably pretty good that both your starting cornerbacks outside are not going to play 100% of the snaps throughout the season. So you're going to have instances where you're going to have a guy come in and play on the outside like that to hopefully not as much as hopefully it's as few as possible times, but it's probably going to happen. And have a veteran guy come in like that, and I think the key thing that you just pointed out there is a lot of his offseason last year was getting over that injury and getting himself ready where he could at least be healthy enough to sign. Then he's got to come in and learn things, and obviously didn't play all that much last year. But once again, this is a pedigree guy that's done it at a high level, has made some plays in the NFL, and if that's your backup corner, and then on top of that, you have him helping mentor the young kid in Dalen Everett, and really you got 3 guys there, that have played a lot of ball in JPJ and Dean and Asante Samuel Jr. Those aren't bad guys to learn from.
Right, absolutely. So good start for Samuel. We'll see if that continues throughout this process. Roman Wilson has been peppered with targets, getting plenty of chances to show he can be the number 3 receiver, running over Jeremy Bernard out of the gate. Been some good, some bad for Roman Wilson. That's one other takeaway. And then just the health of the group so far, knock on wood, not in too bad a shape. And the big news there, Broderick Jones has been working in full, including in team periods at basically second string, second team left tackle. And so that's great news for Broderick Jones. Will he continue to be full for preseason action? And once the pads come on, we'll see. Can't say that with certainty, but moving in the right direction. And he spoke to reporters, I think, earlier today or yesterday.
Yeah,
All the days are
yeah,
running
today.
together, I guess, yesterday, since just people listen to this on
Oh,
Friday. But either way, he talked about him kind of trying to get his strength back and get his conditioning under him after being limited in the spring. Said he's at about 300 pounds right now, but a guy ready to work and certainly happy to be healthy.
Yeah, I guess now at this point, look, you got him across the line in the sand of whether or not he was going to be healthy enough for the start of training camp, avoid the PUP list, and he obviously did that. And he's seems like he's according to what you're telling me and reading your diaries and all like that, he's mixing right on in there. Now the pads come on obviously on Monday. Be interesting to see the level of participation there. And then 2 weeks from I mean, we're recording this Thursday night, so actually 2 weeks from today, but by the time people listen to this, almost 2 weeks from today, the first preseason game already. So, will he be ready to play some, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 snaps, maybe in that first preseason game? And if he doesn't, maybe by the second preseason game, he's able to, and that would obviously be a good sign. And we kind of expect, I don't know where we expect him to play right now. It doesn't sound like first team right now, but that obviously some things could change here over the course of the next few weeks here. I think it's probably safe to say we're probably going to see him at left tackle and right tackle, I would think, during the preseason, assuming he gets the green light.
I think he talked about that, preparing for both spots. I've only seen him at left tackle so far. They've done a little bit of flip-flopping. Dylan Cook playing some left tackle during Thursday's practice. Brock Hoffman's played all over the place, center and guard, just a lot of mixing and matching. So hard to get a true read into things, but we're going to learn a lot more along the way, especially in preseason action. But Jones, of course, has plenty of Sunday experience at right tackle and at left tackle, so neither position is going to be new for him. So we'll see where that leaves Pittsburgh, but I would say offensive line depth is looking, again, knock on wood here, but pretty strong. They have a lot of options, and it's hard to be deep along the offensive line. Most teams are shallow, barely able to have a strong starting five, let alone sixth, seventh guys. And no matter how this thing shakes out, whether it's going to be Honitzer on the bench and Hoffman and Broderick Jones or whoever, you feel pretty good about your depth along the O line.
Yeah, and Zach Frazier talked about any kind of adjustments to Mason McCormick and being on the other side of him now, and he said basically yes and no. Basically he's on the other side, but he's still that's really the only thing different. He's played alongside him now for a couple of years now, so I don't imagine that this is having any kind of a with Mason McCormick going from one side to the other. I can't imagine this is having a huge impact, if any, on Zach Frazier. And these guys need to be conditioned anyway. I mean, guys are one play away from their backup being in anyway, so you better be ready to play regardless of who's next to you. So I don't think that's a big issue. And obviously we talked about the plus of Fautano and Mason McCormick playing together on, albeit on the other side, for a little while now. And that should obviously translate to the other side. And, the big question just moving forward is week one, who's going to be your starting right guard? Who's going to be your starting right tackle? And, is all your depth healthy at that point? And really, the only other question is, are you going to keep 8 or 9 offensive linemen?
Right. All things to watch, all good questions going forward, but hopefully for Pittsburgh, all good problems to have. Let's go back. Let's actually do this. Let's talk about some of the news of yesterday. Players who are not yet Steelers, but may become Steelers. Pittsburgh hosting a score of players for visits and workouts on Thursday, most notably Jordan Whitehead, the Pittsburgh native and veteran NFL safety, came in for a visit, not actually a workout, but probably some medical checks on him after he's been apparently cleared from a neck injury suffered in a car accident last year that caused him to miss the entire 2025 season, was out of football, now apparently healthy, trying to get back into the league and potentially with Pittsburgh, Dave.
Yeah, and it sounds like, according, I think, Garofalo or one of them, he's got a few visits lined up. So I don't know if we're going to get some finality about where he's going to land just yet. And you look at the Steelers roster and obviously the safeties on there. I mean, and his injury history, I can't imagine where he's going to, if the Steelers offer him anything, it's going to be a huge amount. Now, it certainly wouldn't hurt to have somebody with his experience, as a backup safety on this team, right? And we'll obviously wait and see. I mean, it doesn't sound like this thing is serious with Jalen Ramsey, but there you get past your top three safeties on this team right now. You do have a little bit of a question mark overall, and I mean, it'd be a great ad. I think it's too early in the process right now to sit here and say the Steelers are the front runner or anything along those lines. I think he's really going to take a few visits here and maybe see how some injuries go around the league and just make sure he gets on the radar of several teams here.
Right. We don't know where that search will go for Whitehead. If he's going to visit other teams, it sounds like he will. But if he can come to Pittsburgh and offer some really good depth, then Pittsburgh won't turn that down. As a physical player, hair on fire kind of a player with Jalen Ramsey on PUP, Deshaun Elliott, not 100% participation, about 90% participation. Could certainly use some depth, but Whitehead, obviously, if Cy would make a real push for a roster spot that really could give the squeeze to guys like Robert Spears Jennings and Darnell Savage and Sebastian Castro, but we'll take it one step at a time. No signing is official or reportedly even close to happening. Pittsburgh also brought in a bunch of guys for tryouts. Typically, these are lower level names, more depth type than somebody who could immediately threaten for a roster spot. A couple of quarterbacks turned tight ends in Zach Davidson out of Central Missouri, Heinrich Harburg from Nebraska, quarterback in Seth Hennigan, couple of receivers, and a couple of running backs as well. So no signings, probably Pittsburgh just keeping a Rolodex on standby in case there are injuries in camp, but brought in, I think, 8 players officially for workouts on Thursday.
And you never know, even if none of these, if these guys stay unsigned, there's usually the practice squad usually consists of about, I don't know, anywhere from, 3 to 5 outsiders generally that work with the club throughout, that were on a 91-man roster. So you stacking up, getting them updated in a Rolodex there. And then as the season goes on, you never know what you might need at one of those positions as well, too. So I don't think any of those names, any of those 8 names really stuck out, did they?
No, I mean, I knew about Davidson because he had a fun college path. He was like a punter, quarterback, tight end, do it all guy at Central Missouri. He got buzzed pre-draft a couple of years ago, and Harburg was sort of the same, not quite to the punter level, but I was doing some research on him the other night. I think Hennigan was part of the John Gruden quarterback camp, I want to say, whenever he came out maybe 2 years ago. So that video might be around. I remember looking at Jaquindon Jackson, the running back out of Arkansas, whenever he came out of the draft too. So nothing crazy of note here. Obviously, we'll talk about any individual more should they sign with the team at some point this summer.
Who was the other free agent in for a visit but not tryout?
That was Eric Scott, who came in for, like you said, a visit, not a tryout. He was drafted in 2023 by Dallas. Of course, Mike McCarthy, the head coach, then has yet to appear in an NFL game. He's a DB as well. So, just a connection there to McCarthy. But again, no reported signing with Eric Scott.
All right. Obviously, Jordan Whitehead of the 10 players, eight in for tryouts, 2 for visitors. Whitehead is the most notable and the one to watch moving forward here. I imagine throughout the rest of training camp, maybe and if I don't know what day they usually like to try to do that on, but I think those won't be the only visitors that we see being reported. And we don't know how healthy the team might be right now. We could turn around Friday morning, there end up being a roster move of some sorts, and one of those guys maybe being signed of the tryout guys.
Sure. And just to be clear, well, you're right. There's some unknown injury. A lot of teams this time of year early on in training camp start working out guys just to get that list ready in case they got to sign somebody. They don't have to go work them out. They know exactly who they want to bring in for the next day of practice. Dave, let's go to current Steelers speaking to the media and Patrick Queen with some candid thoughts about his 2025 season, which obviously was met with plenty of criticism, and Queen basically acknowledging that to reporters. He said, quote, "I care enough to know that I had a down year. I know how to correct it. I know how to fix it. My coaches know how to fix it. So we're all collaborating." And that was the statement from Patrick Queen on his season. He says, "One thing I'm not going to sacrifice is the way I play the game. If I have a chance to blow up somebody, I'm going to blow them up. But understanding this, what situations I'm putting myself and my teammates in when I do that and knowing the right time to do that," that's basically in reference to the missed tackles that he had the last season at a pretty high rate. And so finding that line between making the big play versus just making the safe, quote unquote, play will be something Queen aims for a better balance of in 2026.
Well, I appreciate him pretty much validating kind of the things that we have said about him coming out of last season there. look, if he can get that missed tackle rate down, if we can see him make some plays, some more plays in the backfield, some tackles for loss, and a couple of those, he had a couple balls that probably could have been intercepted that went through his hand. Now they would have been tough plays. I don't know if there was like one single one of them that says, "Oh man, you just dropped a gimme there." I think kind of close to the line of scrimmage, kind of bang bang type situations. But I mean, you can turn the tide of the game if you make those sort of plays there. So and once again, this Patrick Queen is a guy that can go out and register 140 tackles for you, in a season. But I don't want to see 50 of those 7 yards down the field. Those kind of things there. But I mean, if more than anything, we got to see him get off the blocks better. We got to see the tackling improve. We got to got to see that missed tackle rate go. Like to see it cut in half, really. Overall, if we're being realistic there, but at least he's cognizant, willing to talk about it, and didn't seem put out by talking about it. He said open field tackling. I think I missed 4 sure open field tackles. And I think he's being pretty truthful over there. He doesn't sound too terribly concerned about not tackling in training camp because talked about how they didn't do that when he was with the Ravens. So we'll see the impact that might have.
Right. It's a big year for Patrick Queen. No question about that. A contract year for him. Pittsburgh has some longer term uncertainty at inside linebacker with Queen and Peyton Wilson in a critical third season, and not a ton of young depth behind us, Carson Bruner, but got Malik Harrison, who might be getting closer to the roster bubble, and Cole Holcomb, who returns on a 2-year deal, but it's no spring chicken anymore. So a lot on the line for Patrick Queen. He knows it. We'll see if he fixes it. I think Pittsburgh's calculation, considering they ran the entire inside linebacker room back, was that everything around the linebacker room will improve the defensive line. Just the overall defense being on the field less, with the offense having more success, that keeps the defense a little bit fresher. And Patrick Queen has spent a lot of one-on-one time with positional coach Scott McCurley. I've noticed that at practice, whenever there's downtime, the little downtime there is, I see Queen and McCurley sort of attached at the hip. So 2 guys looking for a lot more success this time around.
All right, and potentially big year for Patrick Queen too, especially if he hits free agency. So and he's still fairly young. I think he just turns 28 in the month of August, middle of August as well too. So he's still he's still a fairly young guy overall, considering how long he's been in the league now and how much he's played.
Anything else? Any of the notable quotables from the players? I know Will Howard has talked about it's not a toxic competition between him and Mason Rudolph. I mean, even throw Drew Aller in there. Did not want to discuss, though, his interception that he threw to end Thursday's practice. A poor pass over the middle in the triple coverage that Sebastian Castro, the young safety, intercepted. And so Howard's had some good, had some bad, like everybody throughout this process. We'll keep watching, but I think the main thing is he doesn't see this competition as a toxic one between his teammates.
Yeah, and he talked about how they can learn from each other, and he talked specifically about how detailed, going back to kind of some of the things we covered earlier in the show there, about playing for Day and how detailed he was, and then obviously last year, his first year, more detail there, but he's really amazed by the amount of detail that Mike McCarthy has, and that obviously doesn't come unexpected, knowing McCarthy's background, the whole quarterback school, and look, the key for him too, getting into, he's really looking forward to playing in preseason. Obviously mentioned that he didn't get the chance to do that last year, and is looking forward to that, and that's he's going to have to make some hay during the preseason there, and because obviously right now, especially if this team only keeps 3 quarterbacks, you really have the big question is, Aaron Rodgers is going to make the roster, Drew Aller is going to make the roster. If they only keep 3, then it obviously comes down between Mason Rudolph and Will Howard.
Right. And I just thought it was interesting, too, to sort of expand upon what you were saying on the detail side of things. I think Howard is trying to walk the line between not throwing shade or coming off as critical over last year's coaching staff, but really noting that it's different this year with how much attention to detail there is with McCarthy. Of course, his deep background working with quarterbacks, and talking about that McCarthy has names for each step of your drop back, which we broke down in that video of McCarthy back in 2006 when he got hired by the Green Bay Packers, that clinic he gave where he talks about each step, your first, second, third, fourth, fifth step in your 5-step drop. And so seeing a lot of under center work from Pittsburgh so far, probably going to see a lot more of that for this offense under McCarthy in 2026. And so footwork is always a critical component, not just for quarterback, but across every position. McCarthy talked about that. I think before camp started, footwork is paramount no matter what position you play. And so the detail is a notable change.
Boy, it's such a shame. I hate to keep bringing it up. I mean, you crying over spilt milk or water underneath the bridge or whatever you want to say when it comes to that. But it's a shame we didn't get to see him play any during the preseason.
Sure. But he'll get his chance. Knock on wood. I'm knocking on wood a lot here, but barring no injuries over the next 2 weeks, then he'll get his chance against, funny enough, the Green Bay Packers on August 13th.
Uh-huh.
All right, Dave. Anything else from any other players? I've been able to try to catch some of their commentary, but you might have a better ear to it than me traveling back and forth.
Yeah, I think we hit on a lot of what I thought that maybe we should get to today, as far as mostly so we could stay away from just recapping what's on the special edition of the podcast.
The last thing, Mike McCarthy spoke to the media each morning before practice, as he will every single day before they hit the field. And he talked about the 6 fundamentals of Steelers football. Kind of the Steelers 6 was the alliteration that he used there to define this team. Ball security, blocking, tackling, big plays, pursuit and finish, and mannerisms and disguises were the 6 tenets of Steelers football.
Yeah, you're not going to get any pushback from me on any of those 6. Instead of the 7 habits of highly effective people, you get the 6 pillars of great Steelers football, right? Big plays, brother. We obviously need to see this offense register some more big plays this year, more so than the last couple of years with this offense. So that's obviously going to be high on the list. These guys got to get off the blocks and all as well. I think that's a big thing. And tackling, you go back and you look at the warts from the defense last year. Missed tackling played a big part in it. We just talked about Patrick Queen and his high missed tackle rate last year. And you're not going to get any pushback on me, but I imagine that Mike McCarthy is going to be drilling those 6 things home all throughout camp. If not already, he probably has already been doing it most of the offseason.
You kind of answered the question, but just to put a bow on it, what areas do you think Pittsburgh was most lacking among those 6 principles last year?
Oh, let's see here. Read them
You
off.
mentioned the big plays, the tackling. Those
Yeah.
are probably the top 2. But ball security, blocking, tackling, big plays, pursuit, finish, and mannerisms, disguises, especially at the quarterback position, as McCarthy defined it.
Yeah, big plays and tackling jumps out right at me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. And McCarthy was talking about big plays. Obviously, we can create those naturally. I think you'll see more play action this year, the under center stuff we talked about a moment ago. But the extended plays is often where big plays come from. You can also allow big plays in those extended moments too. So plastering defensively, being able to contain the quarterback is obviously a component. You're facing Lamar Jackson twice a year, facing good quarterback mobility throughout the season. And then offensively, 41 completions at 20-plus yards last year. That was bottom 3rd in the NFL, a big reduction even from 2024. And so you need to get back to hunting more of those big plays.
Absolutely.
Question is, can you get those with Aaron Rodgers, 42, 43 in December, mobility's declining? If it's all about extended play, kind of improv type stuff, how much can Rodgers get that? How much can the line protect him? We shall see. But no matter how you want to draw it up, either in structure, out of structure, big plays have to happen with much more frequency.
Yeah, I think hearing some of the other things that have been positive, at least over the last couple of weeks, is the want to potentially run offense more under center more. Zach that got a vote of approval from Zach Frazier as well too. We need and I think the ability to be able to pass more on first down and use play action as part of it. I think kind of traditionally Mike McCarthy is certainly not scared to throw the ball on first down, and imagine Aaron Rodgers would have no qualms with it as well too. So I imagine this year we're going to see more under center stuff and potentially more passing in 1st and 10 situations.
Let me turn the question on its head. Which of those 6 areas do you think Pittsburgh was best in last year? Certainly was not tackling, certainly was not big plays, but ball security, blocking, pursuit, finish, mannerisms, disguises.
I think pursuit was pretty good from what I recall.
Yeah, I was going to say either pursuit or ball security. I think they did generally take care of the football well last year. I thought Jalen Warren has cut down on some of those fumble concerns that followed him out of college and early in his career. Don't have the exact numbers where Pittsburgh stacks up. I think they were pretty good.
I think the two that you'd choose from would be ball security and pursuit finish, probably.
Right, right. But plenty to work on for Mike McCarthy and staff. So anything else to cover? We're not going to do a super long show today because it's late, barely practice tomorrow, but wanted to stay on schedule so people didn't wonder where the regular Friday show went.
Yeah. No, I think we got it. What, anything specifically that you're looking for? I think you said that you're going to be trying to concentrate a little bit more on what goes on over at that on the second field.
Yeah, it's going to be my goal for tomorrow's practice. And, it's great they're doing the 11 on 11 simultaneously with two groups. I think that makes a lot of sense, but it's not fun for my notes because you can really just pick a group. You can't really watch and chart both with any sort of effectiveness. And so I've been watching the near field, the starters, and not the third team, fourth teamers on the middle field. So I just haven't gotten to learn really much about those guys and who's aligning where. It's all a little bit different, all a little bit new. So probably going to be part of my focus for tomorrow to get a little more familiar with guys closer to the bottom of the depth chart. Now we have some, I think, reader or Twitter
Yeah.
questions you put the call out, Dave. So feel free to get to those.
All right, let me pull them up here. I think we got three of them at last look here that we called out here for from JJ Walker on X. Why do you think Mike Tomlin wasn't as detailed with his approach? From what it sounds like, it's night and day, basically, with McCarthy. Thanks, JJ, for the tweet question there. Why do you think Mike Tomlin wasn't as detailed with his approach?
I mean, it's still tough to answer because we don't know exactly some of the details. And I mean, I'm sure Tomlin was detailed in a lot of areas and probably especially defensively. Obviously, his background is not offensive minded and quarterback focused like Mike McCarthy. So there's just a different style. I mean, it's a long conversation about, getting kind of lost in the details or focusing on the big picture stuff and the balance between it all. They're both important, obviously, but I mean, just a different way of going about it. This really just as simple as kind of the philosophy of it all. But obviously, when it comes to quarterback play and the offense and how to scheme something up, I mean, that's McCarthy's bread and butter. He's been doing that with quarterbacks since the 90s, pretty much, if not earlier. And, head coach for, since 2006, save for a couple of seasons, 2019 and last year. So he knows this as well as anybody in the NFL.
Do you think Mike Tomlin kind of fell in a rut? With what the way I'm doing things, maybe specifically in training camp, has at least gotten us, into the playoffs more times than not, albeit no playoff wins since 2016. Do you think coaches, especially ones that are tenured, maybe more than 10 years in the league, can tend to get in ruts in the way and maybe changing things a little bit?
Sure, that's probably fair of anybody who's doing one thing in one place for as long as Mike Tomlin did, rare as it is. It probably was the same commentary in Green Bay in 2019 after Mike McCarthy was fired and they brought in LaFleur, and they probably had a new way of doing things there that felt refreshed and different and brought a lot of excitement then. And so you could say probably McCarthy maybe fell victim to that during his final seasons in Green Bay. So yeah, it's probably fair to frame it that way, sure.
All right, and obviously Mike McCarthy has had a season off here in between coaching gigs here. That gave him a chance to kind of readdress stuff. Now, obviously, we haven't been through a full training camp prior to, during his time, and obviously in Green Bay and Dallas to know how much has changed, as far as the way he runs things. So maybe this is just the way that Mike McCarthy runs camps for the most part.
Yeah, and the information I gathered from those Packers and Cowboys beat guys I spoke to before camp, I think has generally been accurate to what this camp experience has been like, where I figured they weren't going to tackle, it'd be a little less physical. It's going to be a lot more tempo, a lot more pace, and not really competition one-on-one type of work. So it's probably similar to how McCarthy has run things in the past. It's just new to us, obviously, for obvious reasons. But yeah, Tomlin's training camps never really changed over time. I'm sure in some small ways they did. I mean, one thing I will say, it feels like Tomlin, and it's early for this year, obviously, but Tomlin had more special teams periods. McCarthy's only had one during practice. So they worked on punts and field goals today. So they did, multiple units. Tomlin, I think, would have probably at least three in a practice. And so, we'll see what kind of impact that has. Pittsburgh still can get some good quality work on special teams, obviously, but that's just kind of one difference we haven't talked about too much in terms of both styles.
All right, let's see. From Arjun, Arjun, at Junebug on Twitter. How much of an influence do you think Brian Angelico will have on the offensive design? Do you think he'll convince Mike to use more multiple tight end sets?
Angelico is a tight ends coach at heart and has a deep background there, but let's be honest, this is Mike McCarthy's offense, as it should be. You hired McCarthy in part for this reason, not just for the offensive part. I always talk about you don't hire a head coach just for his expertise on offense or defense. The job is so much bigger than that, but you hired Mike McCarthy. It's going to be his offense, and you watch him during install period and warm up. Who's calling in the plays? It's Mike McCarthy, and Angelico's there, and he's got the play sheet in his hand, and I'm sure they're going to collaborate ideas behind the scenes, and Angelico will have an important part of game planning and film study and preparation for McCarthy on game day. But I mean, you give the keys to McCarthy because that's the guy that you hired.
Exactly. Will he take some input? Will obviously he'll use them as a sounding board. Those two have worked together in the past, right? So. And then Aaron Rodgers is going to have a little. You got to figure Aaron Rodgers is going to have some input as well too. So, but make no mistake about it. This is Mike McCarthy's offense here, and especially right out of the chute in year one. It's going to be hard to influence Mike McCarthy into, let's say, more multiple tight end sets.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I mean, we're going to see how much 12 personnel they use, and it's going to ebb and flow a little bit. We're going to see more 11 personnel than the multiple 12 and 13 personnel that Arthur Smith had last year. But, when they've got install to begin the first 2 days of practice, their first snaps have come out of 12 personnel. Very old school West Coast 12 personnel, under center, play action, stretch runs. I mean, it's all kind of married together there. So there's still going to be certainly an emphasis or some sort of, good level of multiple tight ends. You paid Darnell Washington this offseason. Pat Frymuth got paid, 2 years ago. They're going to, I think, use those guys. So we'll see what the numbers look like. It's going to be a lot of mouths to feed, but I don't want to just walk in with the assumption that McCarthy won't be using 12 personnel.
Right. We're not looking at 80% 11 personnel here by any stretch of the imagination, especially with those two tight ends making the money that they are, and the ability to do things in the passing game, not only to run games. So, but,
and they drafted a fullback, which also tells you about the personnel they want to run.
Exactly. All right, let's take one more here, the final one here from Allerberg. Allerberg. He writes, who is a player on the team that you personally really enjoy rooting for? Maybe not necessarily a star player, but a guy you're really pulling for to make the roster and have a bigger role this season.
I don't know, Dave. I'm going to pitch that one to you to start. Anybody that comes to mind?
Well, if we're not talking star players, I tend to want to answer this more in kind of a youthful or and look, there's so many different ways. Eli Heidreich, I'll say it. Okay, I think this is a guy that's just out on the bubble, obviously not guaranteed a roster spot. Great backstory, the whole Navy thing, and all 7th round draft pick. You look at the skill set and what he was able to do at Navy in the passing game as a receiver there. I just think that's an easy kid to root for. Now, I wish Art Rooney wouldn't have come out and called him the best. What did he say? The best 7th round pick ever. I wish he wouldn't have put that moniker on him. But I think when you look specifically at this class, I think Eli Heidenreich is a guy that's not necessarily obviously guaranteed a roster spot, and I think he's a easy guy to root for.
Yeah, certainly going to be somebody that fans are going to love, and it's got a lot of buzz after he was drafted and throughout the offseason, and people are a person that I'm sure people want to see make this 53-man roster. We'll see. It's hard to get a sense of that 2 days in, but it's going to have certainly a climb to make it. I mean, I try to not put my wants or rooting interests really at the forefront because, I want all these guys to do well, want everyone to look good. That's just good for the team in general, which is good for business when the team is good. So I don't know if there's anybody I sit there and say, man, I'm really rooting for this guy. I like Sebastian Castro. My heart's those special teams kind of guys, and I think he's got the ability to be a really good four-phase special teamer, chip on his shoulder, undrafted, free agent, just kind of kind of my type of background there. So it'd be kind of cool if he made it. Also, I like being right. So if he makes it and I had him on 53, then I could sit there and say that I called my shot and I was correct. That's always good. But you always want these guys to do well. So I don't really sit there and say, oh, I want this guy to do well and this guy to do poorly, because just not my mindset, Dave.
I'll add Darnell Savage to my list as well too. I always like these kind of redemption stories. These kids that are early round draft picks that really didn't pan out, that end up latching on with a different team, a couple years into the season, and essentially kind of saving their career and latching on and being able to make some contributions with a team. And I like Darnell Savage going back to time at Maryland. Obviously looked at a lot of his tape coming out. I really thought the Steelers might draft him several years ago there. So everything I hear from him, interviews and all like that, I think he's a very likable guy as well too, and definitely a guy that is not guaranteed a roster spot right now too. So add him as one of the veterans, and then Eli Heidenreich as a rookie that I'm really rooting for.
All right, good deal. Also, just for Deshaun Elliott to come back healthy, love the way that he plays.
Mhm.
So rooting for him to come back into form.
And I tell you what, Jaquan Brisker really enjoys being back in Pittsburgh, being reunited with obviously Joey Porter Jr. and all that. That guy's really seems thankful on social media, and he's another one that just really looks thankful and seems like he's going to be an easy guy to root for here now that he's with the Steelers.
No question, he was amped up. They're about to start their 7-on-7, and he just let out this big scream, just like, "Ah," and just getting himself hyped up. His scream was better than my imitation of it. So, yeah,
Oh.
definitely a guy that loves football.
All right. Okay, we got through some of these Twitter questions here. Think we managed to kill about, I don't know, we got about a 40-minute show or so here, don't we? So and we stayed pretty much away from trying to basically recapping what we put on the two special editions of the Terrible Podcast. If you haven't listened to those yet, they're obviously easy to find on your podcast channel or on YouTube. We record those. We usually try to make them 30-35 minutes once we get into this thing nightly after a practice takes place. Obviously, when the Saturday night practice rolls along, we won't have a special edition podcast that night there. So I think in total we do about, I don't know, I think we'll do about probably 14 of these, I guess, in total here. But if you're looking for anything on the recaps, especially the last 2 days, if you missed those, we invite you to check those out in your podcast feed, and we appreciate you for listening there. So, all right, Alex, how about I get us out of here, and then you and I will reconnect on the Friday night special edition of the podcast. So, in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, and hit the ad-free button and follow the directions that way. So, until next time, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.